Gout. What do I eat? And we start right now. Hi, I'm Dr. Pete. I have a PhD in biochemistry and I'm also a Nutrition Network health practitioner. In 2016, I was diagnosed with gout. And then in 2019, I was diagnosed with prediabetes. I struggled to try and understand the metabolic diseases that I was suffering from. And in that process, and studying the science that had been published going back into the 1700s, I have reversed my diabetes or prediabetes, and I've also put my gout in remission. As a PhD in biochemistry, I leverage not only my training in biochemistry, but also the fact that I taught chemistry for over 28 years. And I leverage this experience to look at the science in order to find solutions to the problems that many of us are suffering from. From this hard work, which has amounted to having my nose in thousands of publications, I have recently been talking about the gout hypothesis, and I have linked those videos here. Today we are going to talk about a food plan that for most people that try it and live by it have been able to put their gout in remission. Most people. And this comes from the fact that I have developed the gout hypothesis, which takes the accumulated science coming from 1850 forward and using that science to come up with a valid hypothesis of gout, and then using that knowledge to come up with protocols in order to allow us to put that disease into remission, that painful disease. Before we get started, I want to remind the viewers that I have the Gout Intensive coming up on April 22nd. You can find the information for that, and I would encourage you, if you suffer from gout, to sign up for it at www.drpetesgoutintensive.com. This will be a Saturday morning starting at 8 a.m. Phoenix, Arizona time. We will spend 4 hours looking at the science behind gout, what causes it, hyperuricemia, and how we deal with it, right? Hyperuricemia being high uric acid, chronically high uric acid, the gout remission protocol, and then finally, how do we maintain remission and how do we deal with bringing hyperuricemia down and the maintenance of a remission and pain-free life. I encourage you to go to my website today and sign up for its value. It's massive. After the Saturday intensive, there will be 4 one-hour follow-up sessions that occur over the ensuing month that comes after the intensive. Please go today and sign up. I would love to have you. The first and most obvious thing that we need to do if we want to put gout in remission is to eliminate the drivers. And the drivers of gout are hyperglycemia, alcohol, exogenous fructose. When I say exogenous fructose, I'm talking about the ingestion of added sugars. And added sugar will bring in both glucose and fructose. Hyperglycemia, elevated glucose, and fructose and alcohol function to activate fructose uric acid metabolism. Again, you can look at the previous videos that I've published in this area. Moving on, another factor that opens this pathway that drives gout are foods that are umami, and these are foods that are high in the amino acid glutamate. This includes the whole realm of processed food, and glutamate containing foods like sugar have a lot of different names. The main ingredient that you may recognize when you're listening to this video would be monosodium glutamate. But the food processors have learned that the consuming public recognize MSG in their food as being something that they probably shouldn't be eating. And like with sugar, MSG has a lot of different names. So it's important that you educate yourself about how to recognize when high glutamate is present in the foods you're eating. Also, glutamate is found in various types of meats. And later in the presentation, I'll address that issue. In particular, certain meats like sardines or anchovies are going to be high in glutamate and other nuclear factors like inosine monophosphate, adenosine monophosphate, guanosine monophosphate, and so on. And when they're combined with monosodium glutamate, can drive a gout flare. So it will be important, and we will talk about this more as we go on, to modulate those types of meats in your diet, perhaps eliminating them as an example. But we'll come to that in more detail later. And then at the bottom of this slide, you can see that I'm talking about hypoxia. And in this case, we're really referring to someone who's suffering from sleep apnea. And the reason why this is important is because all of our major organs have hypoxic gradients that are in them. Just think about this for a minute. The liver, for example, has a blood supply that comes to it, and the nutrients and the oxygen that is delivered to the liver is done so through capillaries. But the liver is big, and you have to be able to diffuse those nutrients throughout the entire organ. So in our major organs, there are hypoxic gradients where you have oxygen at the highest concentration where the capillaries meet that particular tissue, and then the oxygen has to diffuse into the inner portions of that organ, and that creates a gradient where at the most central location, or the location that's deepest within the organ, the oxygen level there will be lower than it would be at the surface where the capillaries, or at the point where the capillaries have been integrated into the tissue. Where sleep apnea plays a major part in this is that over the course of a night, when someone is sleeping and they keep their respiration drops to very, very low levels, then what we see is a drop in oxygen perfusion to these organs. And what that's going to do is increase the magnitude of this gradient. And when that happens, we see a metabolic shift, which is the same as the type of metabolic shift that we have when someone is eating a meal that is hyperglycemic. It has added sugar in it along with alcohol and a high umami load coming in via processed food or some type of specialized meat that someone is eating. So anyway, stepping back, what we want to do if we want to eliminate a gout flare is we need to eliminate the major drivers in the eating plan. That means we need to not have the hyperglycemia, stop eating the added sugar, reduce or eliminate the alcohol, stop with the processed food altogether, do something about getting tested for sleep apnea. And if you are sleep apnea, then you need to find a strategy that will eliminate that issue. So where does that leave us? Now, this is one of the important things that I want to stress here, and that is the idea that there's a lot of science in regard to gout that goes back a really long way. We knew in 1850, for example, that the best type of eating lifestyle to put gout in remission was one that involved a mixture of animal protein and vegetables. What does that sound like to you guys, right? This is a low-carb lifestyle. Going back into the 1850s, they already knew, the doctors back then already knew that the milk diets, for example, the very highly restrictive purine diets, pure vegetable diets, including starch diets, don't work to put gout in remission. And in fact, gout flares continue. So the starting point for this is talking about a lifestyle involves getting whole food that we cut up and we cook ourselves. It involves a mixture of animal protein, and I'll talk about that more in detail coming up, and also low carbohydrate vegetables, vegetables that are not high in starch, as an example. And why the starch issue? Because we're eliminating hyperglycemia. This is the thing, right? We want to eliminate hyperglycemia from this because hyperglycemia also enters into fructose uric acid metabolism via another biochemical pathway called the polyol pathway. And so when I talk about starchy vegetables, what am I talking about? Eliminating potatoes of all types, eliminating rices and grains of all types, and eliminating added sugar. No GPS. No GPS. Grains, potatoes, sugar. No GPS. So we're talking about on this slide then eating a lifestyle which is composed of whole real food. We buy food that looks like food. We cook it up and we cook it ourselves. So point number one, we eliminate eating anything out of a bottle, a package, a box, and so on. All of this stuff is highly processed, ultra processed food. Ultra processed foods are bringing in all of the major components that I'm telling you need to be eliminated if you want to stop gout flaring. The hyperglycemia, the added sugar, the umami, right? Because the food processors, they understand this concept that they call the bliss point, the bliss point. And what they're looking for there is this ultimate combination of sugar, salt, umami, right? The high glutamate with the IMP, the inosine monophosphate, adenosine monophosphate, yeast extract. They know how to combine this stuff so that when you take a bite, it's like, I love this, right? And you're just eating it down. Packaged food needs to go. We're going to eliminate juices. Juices are more serious when it comes to added sugars than even drinking soda pop. And I'll have some examples as we go into this. Sports drinks, super not a good idea, right? Because these are very, very high in refined carbohydrates, right? The sugars, high fructose corn syrup, and so on. And then, as I've already said, we're going to limit potatoes of all types. We're going to eliminate rice of all types, grains, and in particular, added sugars. Now, on this slide, which you may want to pause and look at later, is a model of an eating plan that I provide to my clients. You're just looking at the first 7 days of it. And what you can see here is exactly how I eat. So it's composed of whole, real food. What I'm not showing on day one is that prior to day one, there was an evening meal that was produced in my kitchen by me, and I overcooked the food, right? I don't mean I overcooked it on the stove. I mean I made more than I knew I was going to eat. And the reason for that is because for the first lunch that I'm going to have, I'm going to utilize leftovers usually that I produced myself the night before. So there's a natural cycle to this and how it works. In each of the dinners, usually I'm making more food than I know I can eat, and I do that on purpose because the following day at lunch, I want to make sure that I have whole real food that I made that I can eat. And in work life, where you're running out the door in the morning, this is super important because you just want to be able to reach in the refrigerator and take packaged stuff. And now I have my lunch, which is not processed except by me. I made it myself. I know what it is. The drivers of gout have been eliminated. And then you can see what the pattern is for this lifestyle in the first 7 days. And usually for my clients, I provide this as an example for the first month. I also have the recipes in a recipe booklet, which are linked to YouTube videos where I actually demonstrate how to cook the food. So this just gives you an example of what this lifestyle looks like. I advocate a low-carb lifestyle, put gout into remission. And one of the reasons that I do this, the likelihood that you do not suffer from another comorbidity is super slim. You should have blood work done. You should do some investigative work and find out if in fact you are, besides being a gout sufferer, if you're suffering from these other comorbidities. As an example, 74% of gout sufferers also suffer from hypertension, high blood pressure. 71% are suffering from some level of progressive kidney disease. A full quarter, over 25% of gout sufferers also are type 2 diabetics, and then somewhere between 10 to 15% are suffering from cardiovascular disease or stroke. If you are a gout sufferer, it's very important to look at your whole metabolic health so you can determine whether or not you are suffering from multiple comorbidities. Because of this issue, and remember that I also was pre-diabetic besides being a gout sufferer, and the low-carb lifestyle is known to reverse these conditions if you do the lifestyle well. And so this is the lifestyle I utilize. So, and this is going to be somewhere between 5 to 10% carbohydrates. Now, our establishment really pushes back on this, and they say, well, Dr. Pete, you're eating a diet that has completely eliminated carbohydrates. The bottom line is, no, I haven't. All right, I just said 5 to 10%. The point is, the types of vegetables I eat that have carbohydrates in them are also paired to a large extent with fiber, and these are whole food products that I'm cutting up and cooking and eating myself. It is true that I have eliminated the starches, and that's because hyperglycemia is known to activate fructose uric acid through polyol, and we have to pay attention to the science. After all, what we want to accomplish here is to put gout in remission. That's what we want. I'm talking about a lifestyle here that is between 5 to 10% carbohydrates. You can toy with this a little bit, right? The whole point here is to find a lifestyle that's going to work for you in the long run. This isn't something that we're just doing now for a couple of weeks. Then gout remission has happened, and now we go about our life again, because if you go back to eating the way that you have in the past, that particular lifestyle is going to lead you right back down the hallway to your gout suffering. And it also is going to drive these other comorbidities, because fructose uric acid metabolism is at the core of this metabolic dysfunction, or this metabolic maladaptation that down the road leads to chronic disease. There are many approaches to the low-carb lifestyle that are out there, and I'm sure that if you're surfing the internet, you've probably heard of some of these. You know, some people are going to count calories, and they're going to use these apps to determine, you know, how many carbs that they're eating, and they're going to be working off of nutrition labels. There's a lot of reasons why I think that that's a very ineffective way of doing the lifestyle. I advocate for what I call the plate method, and again, this comes from the science. Atkins was publishing this stuff back in the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s. It's a very simple way of looking at low carb. So if you imagine a plate, this is the plate method, and we take the plate and we just split it into 3 parts. In one part is going to be the protein, which could be chicken, it could be pork, it could be beef, and a variety of different fishes, but staying away from the ones that are high in glutamate, like anchovies, sardines, oysters, and things like that. Doesn't mean you can't eat those, but we are not going to have those on our plate on a regular basis. It's going to be something that you do once in a while, and you will be conscious about how much of that you're bringing in when you do eat it, if you eat it. In the other 2 quadrants of the plate, we're going to have green listed low carb vegetables that we cut up and we cooked ourselves. This is a very rich, and it's a very simple way of looking at the lifestyle, and it works to a T. And as long as you're paying attention to eating this way, you always are going to be somewhere between 5 to 10% in carbohydrates. Now on this slide, I'm giving you examples of exactly how I eat. This is literally food that I took pictures of over the years. And I've been doing this lifestyle for 5 years, and I'm telling you, it is sustainable. There's not a problem with that, because it's a very rich lifestyle. It tastes really, really great, and it reverses diabetes, and it also can put gout in remission. And what you see on the left, starting there, is a breakfast meal where I've got 3 fried eggs, got a little bit of hot sauce there on the eggs, which is 0 carb, and it's sitting on a bed of, yes, liver. I talked about glutamate-rich proteins in the context of sardines and anchovies, and liver is high in this. So I don't not eat liver, and the reason why I have this here is to point that out to you. However, I make a point of not eating it regularly, right? And the reason that I don't is because I know that liver is going to raise uric acid. And when you look at the presentations on the gout hypothesis, you will come to understand that the big issue with the gout flare is the sudden acute rise in uric acid, or a sudden acute lowering of uric acid. So I am not wanting to eat a meat like liver every day, right? And I would say right now, I probably eat liver at this point maybe every other month, something like that. So I'm not saying that you can't eat it, and that's the reason why that that plate is on this slide is because I want to point out that you don't have to eliminate it completely from your lifestyle. You just need to not eat it every day. To the right, you can see I've got some sausage there, and I have an omelet. Sausage is a processed food, and I don't buy it when I go in a regular supermarket, because you are not going to find sausage in a regular supermarket, you know, like a big chain market, that doesn't have added sugar in it, and also yeast extract or MSG. All that stuff is going to be in there. So why am I eating sausage here? Because I found a local establishment that makes it by hand. It's clean. It doesn't have any of this added, you know, crap in it. And so I can buy the sausage there and I can eat it. It doesn't push my uric acid up, and it also doesn't mess with my glucose either. Right. To the right, again, now this is another breakfast. Why am I rolling through breakfasts? Because breakfasts are fabulous in this lifestyle. Excellent calories, a good balance, protein and fat, natural fats. I'm going to talk about those more in a few minutes. This particular plate is pork belly that I bought and then fried myself. And again, over on the right, that looks like it's a cheese omelet and bacon that I made. Now down below, I've got dinners. And you can see, starting back on the far left, I've got fried chicken there. I have roasted yellow squash and also Asian eggplant. The next dish to the right is a pork roast soup. The next thing to the right is a chicken crusted low-carb pizza that I made myself. And then finally, the plate on the right, you can see that's a pork loin, along with, again, roasted yellow squash and roasted Brussels sprouts. On this slide, now I'm demonstrating some other types of meals. So we have on the left, we have a Thai chicken meal that I put together, and there's no added sugar in this. I use heavy cream, for example, with coconut oil and a Thai chili paste that's super low. There's no added sugar in it, yeast extracts, or any of the other stuff that contributes to the umami. So I make the sauce myself. It tastes as good as anything you're going to get in a Thai kitchen, for example, except it doesn't have the added sugar and it doesn't have the umami that's going to drive high uric acid. Similar situation, same stuff that's now plated on that middle plate. On the far right is what I call the bamo salad. So there's a variety of different lettuces in there. You can see the olives on it. I do have some cherry tomatoes in there, which can drive elevated uric acid, but notice I only have a few of those small tomatoes. And then down below I have a ground chicken soup that is similar to the pork roasted soup, but here I'm using ground chicken in it. And again, soups like this are really good because not only do you get a fabulous dinner out of it, but then you have leftovers for the following days, which make food preparation really easy, right? Because you're just taking a soup out of the refrigerator and heating it up. And then down on the left, I just want to point out here that we can monitor biomarkers, right? There are glucose ketone meters out there. This one is from Keto Moho. You can test your glucose and your ketones before and after you eat. Similarly, UraSure produces a uric acid meter, and you can do the same thing. So you can be very proactive about your whole real food existence because you have the capability to test uric acid, glucose, and ketones before and then after the meal to see what a particular meal, the effect that it's having on your system. On this slide, I'm giving you a sense for when I talk about green listed vegetables, which ones I'm talking about. Now I want to talk about the fats because questions in this regard come up all the time. In this lifestyle, what we're eating are natural, unprocessed oils to the degree that we can get them unprocessed. And this is going to include things like ghee, butter, beef tallow, which happens to be one of my favorites because I like the oil profile that you have with that to a large extent better than the other oils that I'm using. Lard, olive oil, avocado oil, and coconut oil. Coconut oil having the largest amount of saturated fat in it. And then at the very bottom, I included soybean oil to make a point. We want to eliminate the seed oils, and soybean oil is a seed oil. And why do we want to eliminate it? Number one, it's processed. like crazy. Secondly, look at the amount of polyunsaturated fat that's in it. We don't eat the seed oils, and seed oils are mainly a problem for us in processed food. We're not going to be buying processed food, and that eliminates the issue with the seed oils to a large extent. What I advocate here for natural oils is to eat a wide variety of them. It's important, again, to eat a wide variety of these because these fats are super important to us. Not only are they an energy source. As we progress in this lifestyle, we become to use the most correct language, we're going to become keto adapted over months and years into this. As the older we are and the more comorbidities we suffer from, the longer it takes to keto adapt. As we keto adapt, we're going to become more and more capable of burning fat. So these fats are providing burnable calories. That's one thing. Another is that we utilize various aspects of the fat that we eat in order to produce hormones, in order to produce the membranes that are on our cells. And we need to ensure that we have a wide variety of different incoming fat in order to optimize or get optimal cellular membranes, hormone production, and also provide the calories that we need to burn in order to make energy, because we have reduced the calories coming in from carbohydrates. And now in this slide, we're going to turn to the question of protein. And from the outset, with gout, we have a couple of concerns, right? The medical establishment super focuses on the protein and gout sufferers. They say, okay, what you're going to do is cut down the amount of protein that you're eating. And the reason that they talk about that is because they know that when you degrade protein quantities, well, that protein is cellular. And when you break it down, you have nucleic acids, RNA and DNA, that are in there. And when you break those compounds down, you're going to release uric acid through the degradation pathways that are there. But they don't understand. Protein degradation pathway, while it is important in producing uric acid, is not a main driver of gout. It's a contributor for sure. If you have that going on top of these main drivers coming in, that is going to contribute to these fluctuations in uric acid, and it's the dynamic fluctuations that, as a gout sufferer, gets us into trouble. However, I'm advocating, and I'm going to talk about this more in a second, that we modulate the protein. Protein is good for us and we need it. If you're active, especially if you're active like I am, because I'm doing things, 5 to 7 days a week, and I need elevated protein. Another aspect of this is the fact that we know that for older individuals, and I'm going to be 65 in about 2 months, we are already under eating protein. I mean, this is well known. Where do we start with this? Remember, we're looking at a plate, and one of the quadrants there is going to have this fresh protein that we cooked, right? Chicken, pork, beef, whatever. The question is, how much do we need there? So overarching beyond anything else is that, in my view, we should be eating protein to satiation. We should be eating enough of it so that we feel good. A lot of people want more direction than that. And so here are 2 ways that you can, at least as a starting point, determine how much protein that you want on that plate. Which in general, either method here that you use to calculate it for you will find that you can extrapolate this to the amount of protein that would be in the fat wallet that a man is carrying around in their back pocket that makes that big bulge, right? About that much protein that should be on the plate each time you sit down to eat. One of the ways that you can do this is by taking your weight and then converting your weight to kilograms. Because I think that we need elevated protein, we then use a conversion factor of 2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. And I'm showing a calculation here to do that. So you would pause the video and you could run the calculation yourself for your body weight and see what it turns out to be. The last part there where we're dividing by 6.5 is to put the units of the protein that we want, and this would be per day, which I think is actually lower than we want. All right, that's my opinion about this, but we divide by 6.5 to get the protein quantity into an American unit, which is ounces. You can see using that method for this person, 134 pounds, which happens to be me, that we end up at about 19 ounces of total protein. Now, the other way that you can do this, and one of the reasons why at the beginning of the video I said I don't favor percentage of macronutrient calories as a good way of doing the low-carb lifestyle, has to do with this calculation. Because in this case, what we're doing is we're assuming that the average individual is burning 2,500 calories a day. And honestly, that's a guess. People are individuals, and we also have differing activity levels. And there are some of you watching this who are essentially inactive, while there are others who are athletic like me and are doing a lot of different things over the course of a week, exercising to high levels, and your total calorie intake might be more than 2,500 calories. But if we assume that an individual needs about 2,500 calories, incoming calories per day in order to be functional and to feel well and all of those things, we're multiplying that times the percentage of protein that we want in our diet. And here again, I'm going with 20% protein, because just in general, we need to elevate the protein somewhat. And then if you're athletic like I am, you for sure are going to need to probably bring it up, because you've got a recovery issue going on top of everything else, right? You go out and you do your exercise, and then you need to recover from that, and your muscles are going to need incoming protein in order to repair the adaptation to the activity that you completed. So here we would see in this simple calculation that we need about 500 calories of protein. Now we're going to divide by the relative ratio, 4 calories per gram of protein. And you can see that in this calculation, and not surprisingly, we end up with about the same amount of ounces. So going either direction with this, you're going to arrive at about the same value, assuming that the starting place for this calculation was 2,500 calories. Again, what you're going to have to see going down the road, honestly, is what your activity level is, how you feel, and then I modulate the amount of protein that I'm eating every single day at each of my meals based on that. And I'm running up a percent of protein that's higher than 20%. That's what I need in order to feel well. I want to take a little bit of time here to talk about the processed food, because this is really serious. And I've been coaching this lifestyle now and helping people put gout in remission and reverse diabetes, to deal with cardiovascular disease, kidney disease, you name it, I've seen it. And one of the big factors in this is getting clients to realize that there is not a good processed food. There is not. That is like one of the first things that you've got to stop doing. And one of the things that most people, I think, feedback that I've had seem to feel is innocuous is salad dressing. And salad dressing off the shelf at a supermarket is one of the big violators. Being able to get into remission because people tend to overeat it on the salads that they make or the food that they put it into. This stuff is loaded. So when you look at the nutrition label on this popular dressing, you can see that at first glance, the carbs don't look like they're that high. Then look at the ingredient list. You've got seed oil, number one, and you're going to be hard pressed whether you're in a boutique supermarket or whether you're in a main chain to take a salad dressing down off the shelf and not have it be loaded with crap. That's the truth of the matter. And look at this one, soybean oil out of the gate, and then high fructose corn syrup, which is 55% fructose and 45% glucose. And because when we eat a meal that we're doing it in a relatively short time frame, in this dressing that you've put on your salad, you have a relatively high concentration, a major activator of fructose uric acid metabolism arriving at the liver. This is going to drive a uric acid spike, and then the uric acid is pushed into the circulatory system, where it can make its way, it will make its way throughout the entire body. And one of the places it's going to arrive will be in the synovial fluid of your joint, where there will be a rise in uric acid. And having fluctuations in uric acid either going up or coming down has an intimate relationship with the drivers of gout flares. So this is really bad voodoo. Make your own dressing. I'm picked on this one because I have extended family members that love this crap. And they buy it all the time because it has healthy fruit in it. All right, look at the load here. It's got 28 grams of carbohydrates in it, and these guys are claiming that the total sugars are 24 out of the 28. Just don't have processed food. And this juice is nearly as bad as drinking a Coca-Cola. You might as well have a Coca-Cola with your breakfast, or your mid-morning snack is pouring this, right? This stuff is super bad. There is no such thing as a good fruit juice. Just walk away from it. Here on the left is a popular soda, and in this you can see that there is literally 40 grams of refined sugars in it. Well, they're claiming only 39 grams is refined. I don't know what the other 1 gram, what they would be claiming there. But now when you look over on the right, you can see of what's shown in the ingredient list that the refined sugar that's in this is high fructose corn syrup. So the majority of what you're drinking in this, 55% at least, is fructose, and the rest is glucose. And again, with drinks, you have a high concentration that will arrive at the liver in a very short period of time. This is going to activate fructose uric acid metabolism, and again, when it does that, you have this acute rise in uric acid. And I've already talked about this. It's pushed into the circulatory system, yada yada, down the road we go. On the right is a popular sports drink. This is how this is marketed. Look at it, 63 grams carbohydrate in this. The total sugars are 62 grams, and on this, in the ingredient list, that this stuff is regular table sugar that's been added to this, which is 50% by mass fructose and 50% glucose. Same deal with this drink as we saw for the popular soda. We have a high concentration of sugar that is arriving at the liver in a short period of time, and with our acute rise in uric acid pushed into the circulatory system. All right, and I feel like I have to address the fruit, because one way or the other, this always comes up when I'm working with clients, right? We talk about the lifestyle. We do extensive training in this area, and then a couple of weeks into the lifestyle, usually this will raise its ugly head, and the question will be, well, Dr. Pete, what about fruit? And I'll find out that they've been eating it anyway. And fruit is basically a no-no. And the reason that it is because it contains, no matter what type of piece of fruit you choose, has got either a lot of sucrose in it, which again is going to be 50% glucose, 50% fructose, and or some fruits, especially if they're ripe, will have a higher load of fructose in them than they will of glucose. The argument always comes back, well, I want the polyphenols that the fruit has. I want the vitamins. I want this and that. Well, this lifestyle has plenty of all that stuff. Now, here's what a typical day looks like for me. So I start, and I usually have 2 to 3 cups of coffee, and I like putting a little bit of salt in my coffee. I also will put some heavy cream in there. Some of you may have to eliminate dairy. For some gout sufferers, there are certain fatty acids that come with dairy that may contribute to gout flares, and the only way that you're going to know about this will be trial and error. I usually will eat my first meal somewhere between 9 and 11 a.m. on average, not all the time. Real life happens, right? And there's some time when I may have to eat my morning meal very early in the day. And I've already given you a lot of examples over what that food looks like. And then in the evening, I'm showing you a typical example. So in this one, I'm eating salmon. I've got roasted green beans there and steamed cauliflower. And this has been coupled side by side to what I call the Bamo salad. So it's a large salad. It's got a lot of different lettuces in there, and it's got some avocado. You can see that. And and along with olives, a few strips of onions. On this slide now, I'm laying out what a typical day looks like for me. So I modulate my sleep. I am one of those people that suffers from sleep apnea. I was tested and I'm mitigating it using an oral device. I measure my biomarkers, right? And I know this can be somewhat controversial. And whether you do it or not is up to you. Some people seem to have a psychological reason that they don't want to do this, like they feel like it's punitive or something like that. But I like to measure my weight, blood pressure, my fasting glucose, ketones, uric acid, and lately I've also been looking at lactate. And again, I encourage you to look at the videos that I've produced on the gout hypothesis, because I explain the lactate effect in there. But I experiment with this stuff all the time, and I really want to try and understand how these small molecules are fluctuating in the lifestyle that I have, in part so that I can actively help people that are out there put gout in remission and to reverse diabetes and things like that. So I'm tracking these biomarkers all the time. And in this lifestyle, the longer you do it, the fact is blood pressure is going to come down. If you're hypertensive and you're a gout sufferer and you get into this lifestyle and you're good with it, you will see blood pressure come down. That is one of the consequences of this. The other thing is you will reach a new set point in regard to weight. So a lot of people utilize the low-carb lifestyle for weight loss. We're talking about here utilizing it to get gout remission and to reverse comorbidities. One of the side benefits of this is that you are going to lose weight, and you're going to do it in a satiated way. We are not physically calorie restricting. And in fact, that's a point I want to make sure to make before the end of this video, which is that you should be eating the calories that you need every single day in order to feel good. Usually I'm eating 2 meals a day, but sometimes a third one. And the reason why I need to mention this is because I'm highly active. So I'm doing something almost every single day of the week. And I do high intensity training, I do strength training, I'm a rock climber, so I'm at minimum, if I'm not climbing outside, I'm in a climbing gym at least 2 days a week. And I do general movement. Again, no snacking. I'm eating defined meals where I sit down, imagine the plate, and that mid-afternoon meal is going to look just like the meals that I have in the morning and also in the evening. The only difference is that the portionalities might be smaller. Again, the total calories coming in every day are not being restricted. This is not a diet. Okay. As part of a lifestyle, exercise is important. You may not feel like you can do this in the beginning if you've been inactive and on the couch for most of your life. I would suggest just thinking about getting up and going for walks to start with. And as you get into this lifestyle, you put the gout behind you, you reverse your diabetes, you're going to feel or have more and more energy. And as you go along, you can add other things into your lifestyle so that you have this activity component coming into it, which improves your cardiovascular system, perfusion of blood to the organs, your mental state. I mean, there's a whole bunch of reasons to do exercise. One of the reasons that I talk about doing exercise that I want you to understand that the establishment has wrong, we're not doing exercise in order to get weight loss. Then there is stress management and the sleep issues, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail in this regard in this particular video, but these are important contributors to our metabolic state, and they do have an effect on the gout sufferer. So managing stress and managing our sleep is important. Okay, one more note on the total day lifestyle, and that is that I'm not advocating snacking. So you had a meal in the morning, and you have plans to have a meal in the evening, and you've gone out and you've had some kind of activity and you are hungry. We eat when we're hungry. My point is, you do not want to get into this mode that we see with most people that are eating the standard American diet, where you're eating finger food all day long. We're not doing that. We're having a meal in the morning, and then if you have this activity and you are hungry, make it a meal, right? Think of the plate, put the things down on the plate that you need and eat that, right? And even when I use the word protein, I don't mean protein shakes or any of that business. I mean a piece of meat you made the night before, you overcooked, right? So you've got this extra stuff that's in the refrigerator, and you throw down on a plate, you sit down and you eat it like a meal. This is a very important concept. Remember that restaurants are processed food, and you don't know what's going on in the kitchen, where this food is being produced. So there are strategies here that I suggest that you utilize. The first is, with the internet, you can always preview a menu before you go to the restaurant. Usually, I mean, over the last 5 years, I have only had maybe I can count on one hand when I've wanted to go to a restaurant and there was no menu for me to look at. So you can look at the menu in advance, and you can sort out usually on there whether it's a restaurant you're going to be able to eat at. If you have some kind of social gathering, right, where all your friends, they want to go to a particular restaurant, look at the menu in advance and see. And if it's and this also is relatively rare, but I've had it happen where my friends want to go to a restaurant, I look at the menu and it's a disaster area. This is especially true with chain restaurants. So in those cases, make a suggestion to your friends. You can look, you know where you can eat, usually about where you live, right? And you can make a suggestion to them. Could we go over here to restaurant B instead of restaurant A? Because it will be easier for me to eat there. And usually the friends are pretty malleable that way, and you can end up sitting down and eating in a restaurant where you can order off the menu and do pretty well. Usually you're going to have to order a la carte, because your standard American restaurant, if and when they serve the protein, usually it's going to have potatoes and rice and all the rest of that business on there. So you either need to be willing to order your food that way and just eat the meat, or can I get the steak? Can I have, instead of the potatoes, can I have a grilled vegetable with it? If they can't do that, a la carte's a really good way to go. Avoid sauces. You have no idea what they made with them. And a lot of restaurants are going to be providing you little dishes of salad dressing that came out of a commercialized salad dressing bottle. And I already gave you an example of that in this video. Those are disasters. And then don't be afraid to ask questions. And I understand this is awkward, right? You feel like you're that guy, right? Or you're that woman. Waiter is not going to have any idea what low carb is, or if they do have some idea of it, it's an establishment view and they really don't know what it is. Those are things that you have to surmount, and there is a bit of pressure with this, but it is the way it is. So don't be afraid to ask questions. And if you previewed the menu, you probably already have an idea of what it is you can order there and what questions you might have for them. So let's summarize the food plan. We want a low-carb lifestyle because we need to eliminate the major drivers of gout: the hyperglycemia, added sugars that bring the fructose in, alcohol, because alcohol activates the same metabolic pathway as the hyperglycemia and the added fructose coming in with the sugar, and umami. That's the processed food component usually, although there are some meats that are high, that will cause a high acute rise in uric acid, like sardines, oysters, anchovies, liver. And so how do you handle that? Make sure that you're not eating them regularly. That's the thing with that. It doesn't mean you can't ever have a sardine. You just should not be doing sardines every single day. And I have had some people write into me and say, I'm still having flares. And then when I get into a conversation with them about, okay, what are you eating? Then I had, in one case, somebody said, well, every day at 3:30 or 4, I go down to the pier and I'm having beer. I'm having beer with my anchovies. And I'm like, okay, dude, no. There are other advantages to the low-carb lifestyle, and one of those is the production of ketones. And in particular, beta-hydroxybutyrate, which is one of the ketones that is produced, has an anti-inflammatory effect. It is an antagonist of the gout flare. Okay, this is really important. On this slide, we're talking about what do you do once you get into remission. So understand that the gout flare loves inconsistency. So it's really important in this lifestyle to get in the lifestyle and stay in the lifestyle. When you go out of it, and this has a lot to do with how the establishment, our culture, talks about the ketogenic or the low-carb lifestyle, right? I hear this all the time in other electronic forums that I'm in. These coaches will come on and go, well, I schedule in at least one cheat day a week. No, because I can tell you what that's going to do with gout. What the cheat day is going to do when you bring it in is it's going to cause this acute rise in uric acid. Diffuses into the synovial fluid of a joint. It can diffuse into the chondrocyte, which is the biologically important cell that runs our joints, that it is involved in the gout flare. And so we need to be careful about this. Once in the lifestyle, stay in the lifestyle. And keto adaptation takes a lot longer than what we hear in the establishment, right? 2 to 3 months is what most coaches are going to talk about, most experts in this field, like me, for example. But when you look at the science, it's totally clear that keto adaptation is individual. And on average, it's 2 to 3 months. But for a lot of people, it's significantly longer than that, especially if you're older. Like I was in my 60s when I got into this, or when I was first diagnosed with gout, I was 57. But then prediabetes came at 60. And my keto adaptation took longer than a year. And I don't think this is unusual. You got to get into the lifestyle and stay in the lifestyle and be very patient, do things one step at a time, and stay away from making sudden changes. And with that, I'm going to conclude my presentation. I would like to thank you for watching. If you have questions, feel free to drop me an email at peterdelannoy, all one word, at drpeteNT.com. And don't forget, the Gout Intensive is coming up, where we really go into hardcore detail about putting gout in remission. You can find that information at www.drpetesgoutintensive.com. And make sure, if you haven't yet, to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell next to it so that you know the next time I'm publishing an important video for your gout remission.